They didn't lose to Apple. They didn't lose to Android. Nokia lost to its own decisions. In 2007, Nokia controlled over 50% of the global smartphone market. They were untouchable, dominant, inevitable. By 2013, their phone business was sold off in a fire sale. This isn't a story about disruption. It's a story about ignored warnings, internal fear, and corporate arrogance at scale. At its peak, Nokia wasn't just a company. It was the mobile industry. Their devices were everywhere, durable, reliable, profitable. Their operating system, Symbian, powered millions of phones globally. And internally, the belief was simple: we are too big to fail. That belief would become their biggest liability. Because while Nokia celebrated dominance, the future was already forming, and they had the data to see it. When Apple introduced the iPhone in 2007, Nokia didn't panic. They dismissed it. No physical keyboard, weak battery life, too expensive. To Nokia executives, it looked like a niche product. But here's what they missed. The iPhone wasn't competing on hardware. It was redefining the entire user experience. Touch interfaces, app ecosystems, software-first thinking. Nokia had internal reports warning them about this shift. Engineers pushed for change, but leadership ignored it because from their perspective, the numbers still looked good. Inside Nokia, teams were already experimenting with touchscreen devices years before Apple. They had prototypes, they had concepts, they had the talent. But internally, the company was divided. Executives prioritized short-term profits over long-term innovation. Symbian was still selling, so why risk everything? Engineers described a culture where bad news was buried. Innovation was slowed by bureaucracy. Decisions were driven by fear, not vision. One internal sentiment summed it up perfectly. We knew we were falling behind, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Symbian wasn't just outdated, it was unfixable at scale. Developers hated it. Users found it clunky. Competitors were moving faster, but Nokia doubled down on it. Why? Because replacing Symbian meant admitting failure. And that was unacceptable at the executive level. So instead of rebuilding, they patched, delayed, rationalized. Meanwhile, Apple refined iOS, Google scaled Android, and Nokia? They got stuck in a loop of incremental updates to a dying system. This is where the real collapse begins. Nokia didn't just have a strategy problem, they had a culture problem. Former employees revealed that. Managers were afraid to challenge leadership. Executives punished failure instead of learning from it. Internal competition slowed collaboration. In meetings, people didn't present the truth. They presented what leadership wanted to hear. Because in Nokia, being wrong was dangerous, but not speaking up was deadly. By 2010, the situation was critical. Nokia needed a reset. Instead, they made a desperate bet. They partnered exclusively with Microsoft. The plan? Abandon Symbian. Adopt Windows Phone. It sounded bold, strategic, necessary. But it was another miscalculation, because while Nokia committed fully, Microsoft was already behind in the mobile race. Developers weren't building apps for Windows. Consumers weren't demanding it. And Nokia had just cut itself off from Android, the fastest-growing platform in the world. In 2011, Nokia CEO Stephen Elop released the now famous Burning Platform memo. He admitted the company was standing on a collapsing foundation. He was right. But here's the problem. By the time leadership acknowledged reality, the market had already moved on. iOS and Android had locked-in ecosystems. Developers, users, and partners had chosen sides. Nokia wasn't just behind, they were irrelevant. The numbers tell the story brutally. From 50% market share to single digits in just a few years, billions in lost value. Thousands of layoffs. And in 2013, Nokia sold its mobile division to Microsoft. A company that once defined the industry was now exiting it. So why did Nokia really fail? Not because they lacked technology, not because they lacked resources. They failed because they ignored disruptive signals. They protected legacy systems. They created a culture where truth couldn't survive. And when they finally acted, they chose the wrong partner. This wasn't disruption. This was self-destruction, slow, predictable, and preventable. Nokia's story isn't about the past. It's a warning. Because right now, somewhere inside a successful company, there are engineers raising concerns. There are reports being ignored. There are risks being rationalized. And there are leaders saying, we're still winning. Until suddenly, they aren't. Nokia didn't fail because they couldn't compete. They failed because they stopped listening.